Stone giants are one of those enigmas in Tolkien's Legendarium. They're only referenced a handful of times, and that's led fans to speculate what they really look like. Many depictions have them as large humanoid creatures, like big jolly men throwing rocks and having a good time, whereas the Peter Jackson films have them depicted as large primordial entities made of stone. And it's the Peter Jackson film one I want to highlight the most. We've never seen these on the tabletop as a bigature, I suppose, but if they really were this size, they have to be considered probably the most powerful beings alive at the time. They could one-shot Smaug for sure. The scene in the book and the films highlights just how small Thorin's company are and just how large their quest is going to be. So I decided to bring it to life on the tabletop by making a display board for my Thorin's company miniature. I'm Joe from Windrush Wargamers, and I'm very proud to show you how I made this hulking behemoth that is a 3-foot tall stone giant. Before we kick things off, I just want to say we're getting close to our goal of having a 2,000 sub mark. I'd really love to get there by the end of the year. I think it'd be a great achievement. So please do, if you haven't already, please can you click that subscribe button. I worked on this build for about 7 months in the background of other projects. So any bits that get boring, I'm probably just going to start talking about the lore and what I like about stone giants in general. Let's kick it off. To base this massive miniature, I decided to get chipboard. You can pick this up from the hardware store. It's very flexible, and I just cut it to shape with a Stanley knife. And after that, you're going to need lots and lots and lots of foam. I used 3 different types. The real MVP of this build was the expanding foam. That really helped add volume to the mountain. I had 2 sizes of XPS foam, that's the thick stuff, and lastly some polystyrene. This was either in cubes or in kind of long rectangles. To start the build, I needed a foundation to build upon. I needed something for the mountain to be around, I needed something for the stone giant to sit on. This was created by using 3 of the thinner XPS foam pieces, gorilla glued standing up. This would give me some height that I could build off of. The pose I was trying to create is this one, where the stone giant that Thorin's company are walking on starts to stand up, pushing himself up off the mountain, right before he gets nutted straight in the chops. This would still give off the impression of the huge scale of this stone giant, but also wouldn't take up too much room as he is sitting down as opposed to standing up. And then I could start building the mountain out. For this, I used the expanding foam. So this expanding foam is actually great. It expands in the air to about 3 times the size. I squirted this all over, making several passes, waiting for it to dry each time and expand fully. That way I'd get the most out of the expanding cans. With the basic shape of the mountain taking place, I turned my attention back to the stone giant. I put 6 of these square foam pieces together to make the head, and I put 2 pieces together twice to make the 2 boulder shoulders. 3 of the thicker XPS pieces were glued together to make the torso. During the build process, I would take regular intervals to sort of stack everything on top of each other. This is where I discovered just how large this piece was going to be. I realised I wanted to be able to remove the top of this piece. This would make it a lot easier to store. During this time period I had a flat move, so it was very important that it could be transported. The easiest way to do this was to detach it at the waist of the stone giant. I used 2 wooden dowels for this. It was important they were strong because it would support the weight of the upper body as it was leaning forward trying to stand up. At this point I could set about bulking up the top of the mountain. For this I used a combination of the XPS and the polystyrene foam, basically anything I had lying around. This would give a nice thick structure for the stone giant to sit upon, but also it would give something for the expanding foam to grip to, blending the 2 foams together. I made the mountain path walkway out of XPS foam. These are just offcuts, so they're various different shapes and sizes. Peter Jackson's stone giants are very abstract looking. They're sort of roughly human shaped, which is perfect for me because I'm not a very experienced sculptor. So as long as I could make it look like rock, I knew I'd be okay. One thing that's probably worth mentioning is a few ways to create rock texture. You can use a hot wire cutter, you can take chunks out with a Stanley knife, or you can just do what I did sometimes and just grab a rock and then just bash it, and it kind of holds the texture. I wanted to keep the carving of the texture to a minimum. I knew I had to have it to cut down on the weight of the piece. For the biggest details like the face and the torso, I wanted that rock to look like rock. So I picked up these plaster molds. I was relentlessly using them to cast rock faces throughout the month. I didn't want the texture to get too repetitive, but fortunately they were very easy to snap in half. Wherever I could spare the weight, I did try to use some rock faces just to make it look more authentic. To keep the waist and the hips secure, I glued them down using Gorilla Glue in between the two boulder-like hands. The last thing to do was to blend between the rock molds using some modelling compound. You can use a wet finger to smooth out some of the shapes to make the transitions a lot easier on the eye. I'd had enough with the boring parts at this stage, and so I decided to do the fun stuff instead. This started with the painting. Peter Jackson films have a thunderstorm illuminated by cracks of lightning, a very cool look. I decided to go for something a bit more colourful and a little bit more generic. You'll just have to imagine the thunderstorm. All the exposed areas were coated with some black Mod Podge and paint before an all-over unifying spray of black. I went through 3 rattle cans of black. When it was completely covered, I sprayed down vertically using some grey paint, keeping the black in the shadows and the recesses. The last step was a light grey flat brush. This pushed the contrast between the shadows a lot further and also picked out all of the raised areas. I used lots of trees, moss, ground coverage and colourful tufts to create the colour contrast and bits of interest, as well as snow right on the top of the head to show his impressive height. Now I've probably talked your ear off about the process and you're probably quite bored, so I'm just going to let most of the pictures do the talking now. I would like to talk a little bit about why I think Peter Jackson decided to make the stone giants so rapidly different to what many people have interpreted the stone giants to look, based on the description in the Hobbit book. It's understandable that he wanted to increase the visual spectacle by making them ginormous rock monsters the size of Godzilla, but there is actually some lore justification for this. There is a legend in the lands of Gondor of the giant Tarlang, a mighty stone giant who fell over whilst carrying some boulders, breaking his neck and thus causing a mountain range in the process. The last little touch was to add some puddles using Aqua Magic. This was a nod to the visual inspiration of the books and the films and really hint at that wet, waterlogged mountain path. And with that, my stone giant was complete.
Bless me. The legends are true. Giants! Stone giants!
I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I want to know in the comments below what you think the stat line would be for a stone giant in the Middle-earth strategy battle game. I truly think one of these would very easily kill Smaug and probably everything else. Let me also know what you think of it, what you would have done differently, If you've made any display boards that are a similar size, I'd really love to hear of them, and if you want to show me some pictures of them, feel free to join the Discord in the link below, or reach out to me in the comments and I can send you an invite. This build was a lot of fun, it was a lot of hard work, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm really pleased with how the final product turned out. Don't really know what I'm going to do now though, whether I don't know, take him to a tournament for a display board if I'm allowed to, if he's not too big. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. There's loads of Middle-earth content that is on the channel already, and there's loads still to come. There's 1-minute conversions, there's hobby talks where I talk about certain things like objective markers, there's terrain builds, there's proxy guides. So if you do want to see more of stuff like this, please subscribe. It lets me know that you like the content, and have your say in the Discord. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Joe from We're Just Wargamers, and I'll hopefully catch you in the next one.